Perfect. Now, welcome along to my next isolation interviews across Hospital Radio and, of course, my YouTube channel. And I'm very excited to be joined by the fantastically talented Rory Bremner. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Fantastically talented. Not sure about that. But anyway, that's very kind. I'm glad to join you.
Now, at the moment, obviously, life is very surreal at the moment. How are you finding life stuck indoors?
We're very lucky. We're out in the countryside, not that far from you, in Reading. We're sort of just a little bit further along Thames Valley, sort of in the Vale of White Horse. And so we're out in the countryside where it's pretty self-contained, and where the lucky ones, the ones that you're thinking about, are those at the front end. I mean, people like yourself, of course, Matt. I mean, I should pay tribute, indeed, right from the get-go to you and your wonderful Hospital Radio. You are key workers. You, Matt. Can I call you Matt?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, that's perfect.
Can I call you Dominic? I'm going to call. There's a great advantage because if I call you Dominic, you have access all areas of the United Kingdom. No, but you guys are doing a great job and interestingly, I mean, we're sort of quite horsey out here. My daughter does show jumping, although both of us have been injured. She got kicked in the knee a few weeks ago, and it broke her kneecap. So she's not exactly so she's on crutches for a while. And I had a knee replacement just before we started. So we're quite horsey, but extraordinarily, the horse community has come together. They've done a lot of fundraising for the NHS and for the nurses and the key workers. They did equestrian relief, I think, which raised 300,000 with people like William Fox Pitt and Zara Phillips and Frankie Dettori even, doing stuff for them. And they cancelled a lot of sort of events like badminton and stuff, so they did them virtually and they did fundraising. So I mean, as I say, we're the lucky ones, but what we can do is kind of help to raise money and fundraise for the people who are really going through it. And I did a sketch yesterday with Matt Ford, who's another kind of impressionist and comedian, and I was chatting to him afterwards. I said, so how are things for you? And he's in a flat in Hampstead, but because he has severe asthma, he's been shielding, so he hasn't been out of the flat for 10 weeks.
Wow.
So I know. So those are the people that I always think about. I'm just embarrassed to say, we've got a house with a garden, and we can't even comment on what people are going through.
I mean, that's the amazing thing, though, is that obviously in this, horrible situation, everything that we're going through, but you must be quite happy that you're able to bring comedy into people's lives and kind of, cheer them up when they're maybe at their worst.
Well, they do say, don't they, that laughter is the best medicine. Although I disagree, Matt. I think that hydroxychloroquine, take it, Matt. Take it really great. Or indeed, if you've got some bleach at home, if you've got some Domestos, you could gargle or maybe swallow that. Or if you've got a torch, you could shine it up your ass. And, there are so many things you could be doing that are better than laughter. I don't like laughter. It's often at my expense, and I don't have a sense of humor. Unlike the people who elected me, they've obviously got a great sense of humor. Here's the thing. People say, does laughter have a place? Does comedy have a place? And clearly, it doesn't have much of a place, in ICU, in the front line. However, even as people are recovering or people out there, you just have to look at Twitter and YouTube and all the things that are flying around. People are finding ways to come together. That's what it's about. I mean, all these choral things, the chorister things, the music things, people come together, and laughter and comedy is something that really does bring us together. And I mean, for us, for comedians, it's going to be a long time. I don't know when we're going to see a live audience again, because even if we have, social distancing in theatres, I mean, a half full theatre looks like a half full theatre. So just coming back to what I said before, I mean, for those of us who are lucky, we just need to do our bit. And so I've been doing some podcasts. Mark Nicholas everyone's been doing a podcast. In the sketch yesterday, I had Boris say, well, I think my postman is now doing a podcast. So people have been doing those quizzes, obviously, and I've been doing these tweets. I mean, I did a Boris tweet yesterday about, I don't know if you saw this, about, I think, Dominic Cummings, he like any father. I mean, if you've been a father as long as I have, and indeed as often as I have, I think 6 or is it 7? I don't know. Could be more. I haven't yet tracked and traced all the people with whom I have come into contact. So it may be any number of people. so I just tweeted that out as a sort of Boris little sketch, and I looked this morning, and it's heading up for 600,000 views. And you think, it could get to 1 million, and I think so there's an appetite, and people like to. Where it's a very British thing, Matt, isn't it? I mean, we in moments of crisis, we find a way to come together, and that's just our bit. I know I'm aware that I'm kind of talking my own book as a comedian. I dare say, if I was an opera singer, I would say, well, singing is vital, isn't it? I mean, the birds are singing, the people are singing. We have to sing, but. Yeah, it's just the way that we approach life. And if it does, and yeah, I mean, people have been very kind on the Twitter thing. People do say, thank you so much. That's cheered me up. I've had a bad day. And, that's not me just saying it. It's not me saying it. It's people, getting in touch and saying thank you. And that's lovely, because it means that, you're not kind of wasting people's time.
I mean, I say the good thing with things like Zoom is you're able to, without obviously risking anyone's health, you're able to kind of still do things for people, do shows, do sketches, all that sort of thing. So it must be a change in the way that things are being done at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you are doing it into a vacuum though, as a comedian, because obviously you're used to sort of laughter coming back. Well, hopefully, if it's a good day. So the irony of this is, before this all started in January, I was very lucky. I was out on tour doing I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, which is a Radio 4 panel game. And of course we were doing that, and it was me and Miles Jupp and Jack D and of course Tim Brooke-Taylor. And Tim, he went off on holiday after that, came back. He was in Tenerife. I don't know if that was the connection, but he came back, and on Easter Sunday I got a message to say that he died, coronavirus. And so that's the closest that it's got to me, somebody who had become a friend, who I'd toured with, and who we'd just, the memory of January was theatres full of laughter and the affection and the love that they had for Tim. And he's gone. So if you needed a reminder that it's out there and it's affecting people. It is that is very sobering. But it was that time, at least, and also his family came to see one of the shows in Worthing, I think, and some of his grandchildren, I don't think they'd seen him doing one of those stage shows. And I heard from the producer, they said it was a wonderful occasion, because for the first time, all the family together, seeing Tim on stage, hearing the laughter, sharing that love. And of course, as I say, 2 months later, he was gone, but they have that wonderful memory. And again, that's another thing about, they will remember their grandfather. And the laughter and the joy that he brought to so many people in that theatre on that night. So that's what we miss. We miss the live thing. We miss that. And we have to find new ways of doing it. And yesterday I was doing a deep fake thing. Deep fake is where you can manipulate video so that it absolutely, if I was doing Donald Trump, right, Matt, okay, or Boris or something like that, we can take the footage and we can look, you can't see the join. Can't see the joint, because that's, the technology is now so good. So we recorded that, and the way to answer your question, it was so different, because the equipment had to be sort of dropped off at the gate, as it were, and you had to distance from the operator, and everything was done remotely on TalkBack and new apps that I'd never even heard of, that you can talk to a sort of camera operator 100 miles away. So we did a different thing. So normally you'd be in a studio with an audience, and it'd be a whole lot easier to do. So yeah, we're all finding new ways of doing things, and singers are finding ways to come together. The Take That concert they did last weekend, I mean, that was an extraordinary thing, because there was no time delay, there was no delay, there's no lag. You can imagine, Robbie Williams on a sort of line, sort of 2 seconds behind Gary Barlow and another second behind Marco. But no, they came together and it worked. So they say necessity is the mother of invention. Who said that? I think it was I don't know. It might have been I think it was Alex Jones on one show. Yeah, it might have been. It might have been Jacob Rees-Mogg. Although I would have said it in Latin. Necessita est. Oh God, I'm going to have to get out my Latin dictionary.
Now, I mean, obviously for you, obviously impressions. Where did it all start? Where did you realise that you could do these voices and these impersonations?
Long time ago, when I used to hang out in the Sistine Chapel with Michelangelo, and he was the first impressionist. Although before the impressionists, no, it was school, and I was kind of. it's something which I kind of recognize now as sort of kind of mild ADHD, which is, I always had too much energy. I was a little bit restless, a little bit inattentive. And I enjoyed making people laugh, probably showed off a little bit. And I found that a way to do it, and having a musical ear, was I could imitate the teachers. I could imitate sports commentators, because I was brought up in Edinburgh. So Bill McLaren, of course, was the big Scottish rugby commentator. They'll be dancing in the streets of Drumnadrochit tonight, I tell you. And there's the wee scrum half. He's away like a trout up a burn. It was all that stuff. And I remember listening to Richie Benaud. I'm a great cricket fan, as indeed are a lot of comedians. Great many comedians are tremendous fans of cricket. And one of the first impressions I did was Richie Benaud. And then Peter O'Sullivan doing the horse racing. And years later, I did a lot of charity shows for Peter O'Sullivan, who used to ring me up every year and say, Rory, I'm doing my lunch at the Dorchester Hotel in November. We'd love you to do the honors and do the after lunch entertainment. And every year, and I try to wriggle out of it, because I think I did it last year. The audience will be bored. They won't want to see me again. No, it's what you were always our first choice. And then one year I said, look, I can't do it. He said, well, that's a shame, because I've just put your name on the ticket. And then he died, and I thought, oh no, I thought I'm going to miss those calls. I'm not going to get those calls. And about 3 weeks later, his great mate Mike Dillon, who works for Ladbrokes, who runs Ladbrokes, I think, got in touch and said, Peter asked you to do his memorial service. So I was roped in, and there was the church full of people like Frankie Dettori and Lester Piggott and the great race trainers and John Gosden. And so I sort of did a little horse race of them going out of the church and into the hospitality tent. And they're often first to show us tutorial inside as they go past the font. That's the water jump. And inside, and that's still Lester Piggott coming in. And outside we've got, and on the inside now it's John Joe O'Neill. So yeah, happy times. So it was commentators and it was teachers. And then I went to university in London. I did French and German. But also in the evenings was doing cabaret around London. It was the 80s. It was the beginning of alternative comedy. It was Alexei Sayle. It was the comic strip. It was Chris Barry. And I was just a fraction after that. But I lived in Edinburgh, and we had a festival every year. The circus came to town, and an incredible, I mean, if you wanted to be inspired, if you were in Edinburgh between 79 and 82, and you just went to see these shows, you would have seen Rowan Atkinson, Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, Emma Thompson, Tony Slattery, Rick Mayall, French and Saunders, all these acts, Clive Anderson, Rory McGrath, Griff Rhys-Jones, and they were all just breaking between 79 and 82. So there was the inspiration, and I had my voices, and the voices I could do, the comedy I enjoyed was that kind of satirical review type comedy. So by the time I left university in 84, I got my first call from the BBC to do their radio show Weekending, which was their weekly satire show. And I was off and running. And that was 84. I had a lucky break. Terry Wogan got me on his show. Matt is a great radio buff yourself. You remember that great voice and the man who brought us so much warmth and sunshine and life and all those togs and geezers out there. And he got me on his radio show, and he later got me on his TV show, and that was my big break.
I mean, the amazing thing is that it's not just the voices. You're able to, do the mannerisms. You have to basically be the person. So, I mean, have you ever had instances where you've just really struggled to kind of get someone down to a T, or do you kind of naturally find it quite easy?
Oh, yeah, now. I mean, you look at the cabinet now, and I think, could I really do a good Matt Hancock, or could I do a good, who are these? Some of them, I I remember people like Phil Hammond before. I thought, God, I'm not sure Phil Hammond knows what he sounds like, because they're quite. That's why you you keep going to the Borises, and indeed the Jacob Rees-Moggs, very, very good. I did a little song for him actually, which was here's all the countries, because I'm a great lover of Tom Lehrer. Tom Lehrer, and the Elements song that he did, a little bit like the Modern Major General that Gilbert and Sullivan did. So here's Matt for you. Here's a list of all the countries in Europe I can't stand. There's Portugal and Italy and Poland and Romania, the Netherlands and Germany and France and Lithuania, Sweden, Spain and Hungary and Finland and Estonia, Slovenia, Slovakia, and maybe Macedonia. There's Malta, Belgium, Greece, the Czech Republic and Croatia, and Luxembourg and Cyprus, which is practically Asia, and Austria and Latvia and Denmark and Bulgaria, and Ireland, and if Turkey joins, the whole thing gets much scarier. Once we're out of Europe, we'll no longer be inferior. We'll soon be doing trade deals with Burundi and Liberia. They want to stop us leaving, which is perfectly absurd of them. It's what the British public voted for, at least a third of them. Thank you very much. So you go to characters like Rees-Mogg, and you go to Farage. Let me say to you, Farage, Nigel Farage, you can't sort of say a sentence without laughing. So you go for the bigger characters and the smaller, subtle ones. Although Rishi Sunak, I think, will have to do sometime soon, a little bit like Tony Blair. And it's fun to have some sort of bleed into the others, like, Tony Blair, obviously, Matt, you remember, he was like that. And he's a lot older now, and he's kind of sort of strangulated, raspy voice now. But, if you take him, and you take Chris Harold, and Chris Harold, okay, so could it be is it B, that kind of adenoid thing? And Tony Blair, you put those together and you get Ed Miliband. So it's interesting playing with voices, but you've got to have something to latch onto. I mean, it starts with the voice. If I said, I'm doing an impression of Nelson Mandela, the people of Africa, that's not great. You need to go. You need to be able to commit. And people need to recognize the voice that you're doing. So you're always grateful for, let's say, a William Hague, for example, because that is a voice that is recognizable and very distinctive. It's funny how people who are often described as inimitable, people would say the inimitable David Attenborough. And I think, no, the people who they describe as inimitable are usually the most imitable people, because if you hear David Attenborough, when he was younger, it was a very open voice, but now it's got a little bit older, it's got a little bit more closed, and we, after 3 days filming this extraordinary stick insect, we discover it is, in fact, a stick. So voices change.
I was going to say, I mean, you've done so many. Are there ones that you enjoy more than others? Is there like a favourite one that you just, anytime you can, you love to do it?
I love Trump. I love doing Donald Trump because, there's so much scope. Okay. There's so much you can do and so much that he does. And, I think back to a lot of people now are talking in America about the riots. Okay. And I think back to Martin Luther King, who's a great friend of mine. I know him very well. Martin Luther King. We played a lot of golf together, and we were very close. Matt, Martin Luther King, and I, very close, very, very close. I shot him. In fact, that's how close we were. He was within range. It was less than 2 meters, let me tell you. And Martin Luther King, and I knew his sister Billie Jean King, and I knew her very, very well. But I was the last man she ever had. You know that? I turned her. That's what happened. But Billie Jean was not my lover. So, you can go anywhere with Trump. You can be talking about Meghan Markle, I know her very well. I know her mother, Angela. And he just makes it up. Trump, people say you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make this up. But Trump does. You could have him talking about, the guy the amazing guy who was walking around his garden, Major Tom. Was it Major Tom? And I met him a long time ago. We were on the beaches in D-Day, and he was very, very brave. Not as brave as me, but so you could go anywhere with Donald Trump.
You must when characters like that come along, you must think this is gold dust. This is just perfect. Why have we not had him before, sort of thing?
Of course, the problem with him and with Boris is that they are leaders of a very, very different kind. And they may be comedy gold, as you say, but I think as leaders, what this pandemic is showing is I don't think they've got the skill set for this. I mean, I don't think we've seen, I'm not going to get too deeply into the politics of it because, the people with different views, and this is, we're keeping it quite light. But, where's the international response for this? And where's the attention to detail? It just seems sort of scatterbush, and Trump has kind of just made it up as he went along, as I said, so one week he's saying, it's like the flu, it'll go away. It'll blow away. It'll go. We're doing very well. We've got 15, so we're really on top of it, and it's just it'll go away. It'll go away. And the next week, it was a pandemic. He said, I knew it was a pandemic. I was saying it was a pandemic before they knew it was a pandemic. I was saying, and he has this. He claims about science. He says, I know a lot about science, and he says, I talk about my uncle, John Trump. He was a very wise man, a very wonderful professor, and he was a professor at MIT and a great scientist, and he knew a lot about climate change and things like that. But Trump then says, I never actually spoke to him about this, but I have a natural instinct. So there you have a leader in America, and yes, comedy gold. But this is not the kind of leadership that you need. And Boris, in a different kind of way, when we come to sort of look at this, when the whole phase passes, as it hopefully will, and we sort of start to look back and examine what was done, I think you'll find that the things that Boris was good at, which was bluster and confidence and optimism and all that sort of stuff, is not the skill set that you need during a pandemic when you want an Angela Merkel or somebody who's very scientific and very on the detail and very across it. So what I'm saying is that you enjoy them for the comedy value, but politically, I just think is this modern thing of leaders, strong leaders, who are really kind of tearing up and distancing us and undermining the institutions like the United Nations and NATO and the European Union and the World Health Organization. They're kind of tearing them up. And these things were put in place for a reason, because it was a time after the war where countries came together. So I hope I haven't got people jumping out of their beds and claiming that I'm a huge Remainer and a lefty and a lovey and stuff like that. It's just, I think I'm kind of old-fashioned. I think we should be working together, and I'd look for really coherent international response. But yeah, dream on, Rory. Times have changed. Yeah, wake up and smell the COVID.
Now, obviously, one show that you worked on a few years back, which I thoroughly loved, was the Imitation Game of yourself, Deborah Stevenson, Alexander Armstrong. For you, I mean, obviously, the first series went out, and I thought it was great. Will we be seeing that again? Because I think it was a very different show from what we're used to.
Well, not currently, because ITV, they said thank you very much after the first series, and they decided at that point not to do another, which is a great pity, because I think, you learn a lot in the first series, and, famously, 40 Towers, or I think Python, was very, it could have been pulled after the first series, but there was somebody there who said, no, look, give it a chance, but things can develop. I mean, with the Imitation Game, for example, it was filmed a long, long time, many months, 9 or 10 months, I think, before it went out. And with impressions, it's good to be topical. It's nice to be responding to things that have happened this week. Gogglebox, for example. When you watch Gogglebox, it's great because it's talking about things that you saw that week, and they respond to it. And I think people like that in an imitation show. So we were months before. We wouldn't do that again. And it also, being the first series, it was very... it was very, very carefully produced. It was very carefully edited, and we had lots of material. And I think the second, we could be more spontaneous, and we could react more and improvise a little bit more, and just be a little bit more relaxed. And the great thing about, any walk of life, whether it's football, it's cricket, or music, or comedy, there's a quality of sort of effortlessness, where it looks like, the performers are enjoying themselves and the audience are enjoying themselves. But that comes of a mixture of technique, because you know what you're doing, but you're also relaxed. Think of David Gower batting. He's got, great technique, but there's something that's relaxed and spontaneous. Similarly, for the comedians, if they know what they're doing and they're in a relaxed environment, it's going to have a little bit more energy. It's going to feel a little bit more free. And I felt we had the opportunity to do that. We had, if we had the opportunity to do that, rather, we could have moved on. So I think maybe we'll revisit it after this, after the Pando. On the other side of the Pando, we'll have a look and we'll see. But, people are thinking and they're reflecting. But yeah, clearly, as you say, people enjoy impressions. And Deborah was great. There was some wonderful, my Jan Ravens, who I've toured with many times, Lewis McLeod, who does a great Donald Trump, really good, wonderful. And he does a great Ian McKellen, which is one of his very, very best impressions. And so I love Lewis, and a lot of great. Alice McGowan, Ron and Ronnie, of course, they did it, and the new guys, the up and coming ones, Jess Robinson, wonderful singing female impressionist, Jess Robinson. Look her up on YouTube, and Luke Kempner, Luke, he's very good. He does as it turned out on the first show of that series, he did a better Christopher Biggins than Christopher Biggins. So he had Deborah fooled. Deborah thought that his Christopher Biggins was the real one. So there's so much talent there. And Graham Garden, people who are old enough to remember the goodies, it was Graham Garden and John Naismith, who is the man behind I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, who came up with it. They said, look, there must be a format where we can use impressionists. And not for the first time, Graham, who knows a lot about comedy and is behind so many shows, and John and I found ourselves thinking, well, why aren't they, giving us a chance to develop this? But it's the way it goes. It's the people in charge, Matt.
Now, going forward, what have you got coming up? I mean, obviously, once life goes back to normal, have you got plans for later on this year or even early next year?
Well, I thought I'd go for a walk to the sitting room. I might go to the kitchen. Well, who knows, Matt? This is where I don't know when we're going to be back doing live shows again. As I said about theatres, when can we next see another theatre? I do a lot of shows for companies, which I really enjoy, award ceremonies, because it's just a different audience, and you get in the great days. Just even a few months ago, you'd go to the Grosvenor House or something in London, and you'd have 1,200 people, 1,400 people around the tables at a big awards ceremony or a big charity gala or whatever. And that's a wonderful feeling. I love that room. I love, those many people. Although, funnily enough, if it was live at the Apollo, I'd probably be a bit scared. I get a little bit sort of stage fright with that. But when can you imagine sort of getting 1,200 people, eating in a sort of big banqueting room in London or anywhere else? So I don't know what that's. As I say, I've just recorded this little pilot with Matt Ford where I played Boris and he played Trump, and we had a little Zoom call between us. And I think that's currently with the BBC. But I guess the fact that there's an appetite. I mean, I look on my phone right now. I know I turned it off while I was talking, but I mean, the tweet that I did as Boris last night. I mean, it could be kicking up to 650, 700,000. So there's an appetite, and that gives me hope. I think people want this stuff. People, if we can find a vehicle, we can find a format. We've had the experience of doing it in the past. I kind of know where the writers are. And I think but it's got to be, it can't be just like graffiti. I think it's got to be thought through. And, if I was doing something now, I'd be talking to people who knew about what was going on with the pandemic. I'd talk to people who'd worked in hospitals, so that the comedy that you're doing it's true. You're not just making it up because you want to just come up with a certain political point of view. You just want the truth. And if you can make people laugh at the truth, I think there's two laughs. There's a laugh as an impressionist you get when somebody they go, oh, that just sounds yeah they think, oh, that sounds exactly like Chris Tarrant. That's your first thing. But if it also unlocks something, so people think, yeah, that's just what I've been thinking. That's it. That's what gets me about that policy or that strategy or that that event, then you get that sort of double explosion when you're making people laugh, but at the same time, at some level you're kind of connecting, and there's a sort of it's like a synaptic zap.
Now, I just have to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining me. Anything you'd like to say to any of the patients listening in hospital or to anyone watching online?
Well, listen, I just sort of say, if you're listening in hospital, I hope you're well on the mend. Keep going, because I know you'll be in great hands. Our wonderful NHS looking after you, and keep going, and hold on. You can get through this, and we'll get through this. And maybe I'll come to the hexagon. Might be people saying, "Oh no, I don't want to. I don't want to carry on as a hexagon. Not Rory, not the hexagon." But we'll be ready for you the other side. So keep going, push through, and get well.
Thank you so much, Rory. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, keep safe, and thank you again.
Well, the pleasure's all yours, Matt. Let me tell you, you're a very lucky man to talk to the president. Not many people do. Not even Melania. She doesn't talk to me. She doesn't talk to me at all. In fact, she can't. She doesn't. She's not even in the same room. She says she can't even be in the same room. I said, "Are you self-isolating?" She said, "No, I just can't stand you." So it's been a pleasure. And if you're listening to this in hospital, my very, very best wishes to you and your family. Push through. We'll see you the other side.